Well, pigeon shooting is something that, to my mind, needs quite a bit of preparation. Certainly, reconnaissance is vital. It not only tells me which field I want to be on, because where the pigeons are feeding, by reconnaissance I can also see the pigeons' movement and habits, and that will give me a guidance, depending on the weather, as to where I want to build the hide. There are three main ways of pigeon shooting. In the winter, one of the great fun ways is actually roost shooting, when pigeons come back to the woods to roost in the evening. Another way is flight lining. That is of pigeons flighting from their woodland home out to the fields where they're going to feed, and again that can be effective. By far the most effective, and like 90% of pigeons shot and controlled have been shown to be by decoying on the field where the pigeons are doing damage on the crop. If there were very few of them, I feel that actually it would be a highly revered bird. But it's got a combination between subtle colours and almost heraldic, strong blacks and whites. I mean, it's a very beautiful bird, just like a watercolour from top to bottom. It's a bird originally from the forest. When Britain was mostly forested, there would have been very few pigeons. But now today, there are many millions of pigeons, and they, of course, are a serious agricultural pest. Right, well, here we are on a field of mustard that's grown for seed. And, in fact, what you can see is considerable damage that's been done by pigeons. It shows up particularly this end, but it's actually in patches in the field and actually on the outside of the field. But you can see this has been grazed off here, and any of these plants, which, as you see, have been nibbled down to nothing, well, nothing, certainly the crop has been destroyed in the areas that the pigeons have done the damage. This is how the crop should look. As you can see from this, here is a healthy plant which has got flowers on, so it'll have seeds on. Here is the piece eaten by the pigeons, no flowers, no seed, no crop. According to DEFRA and any farmer you'd like to speak to, the wood pigeon is the major avian pest of agriculture and leads to millions of pounds of damage. Or you might have many thousands of pigeons on the same field, and they'll travel some way for food. I mean, and in the winter they'll travel probably even 20, 30 miles for food. All birds are protected, but certain pest species, and particularly the pigeon, are subject to the general licence for the control of pest species, particularly on agricultural crops. This, of course, is vital for the farmer. He needs some way of protecting his crops. The gas guns do a certain amount, flags, kites, shooing them off, all the rest of it. But ultimately, it's only dead pigeons that don't come back and eat his crop. And that's where the link between the farmer and the pigeon shooter come together. The pigeon shooter, particularly decoying, has got to make sure he's well hidden. starts from a basic that you've got, in my case, a series of poles, which I put around me and a net around that. If you're in the shade, that might be sufficient and fine, but even better if you can add local vegetation to that. In the summer, it might be straw that's from the field onto a straw hide. Obviously, what you mustn't do is cut out valuable trees and shrubs. Each position and each situation will have a slight adjustment to the basic principle of building a hide to hide yourself. You can construct a hide anywhere where the pigeons want to feed, but the key thing is you've got to make it look natural to, in effect, fool the pigeon so that it's not suspicious. There are other areas that pigeons might like to land, as well as my chosen spot, in which case I might either leave my car to keep them off that area or might put white flags up. It's a bit like a military operation, and what I really enjoy about pigeon shooting is the strategy of it. Decoying works on the mechanism that the pigeon is a flock feeder. We actually take either dead birds or different forms of artificial decoy to attract the pigeons within range of the shotgun, and we play on the fact that it likes to feed with its mates. When you've made your hide, you should be able to stand out 10 yards away from your hide, look back, and you should, in theory, not be able to see it. The pigeon is such a wily bird and such good eyesight, and believe me, once it sees you, it's off. You're shooting a truly wild bird, and it's a very canny bird. It's very sharp-eyed. They can fly as high as any bird, as fast as any bird, as jinky as any other bird. There's no bird can fly in such a variety, and you get every shot in the book. It's my #1 passion and sporting bird.
Tom, going wide, going very wide. Lovely shot.
You see a pigeon flying, and it sees the decoys, and you suddenly sense it's fooled, it's going to come. It's rather like the fish taking the fly or the bait. That's the moment you fooled him, and that is a tremendous buzz. Then the next thing is how you're going to control yourself so it doesn't see you, it doesn't see your movement. So keep down in the hide, keep absolutely still, watching every movement of that bird, holding fire very carefully until you can read the line and speed of that bird to make a sensible shot. What I call moment of truth. If you jump up too early, the bird will disappear on the wind and you'll never get a shot. So there's a lot of strategy again as to how you actually take the shot for the greatest effect.
Tom, run it. That was dead all over.
a dog is vital because he can do far more than you can. And of course, he's good company. My chap, he'll sit there for hours, hidden in a hedgerow or whatever. He'll just keep, ideally he'd like to keep watching and his tail will keep wagging and you keep talking from time to time, but he'll just stay there. He also will be in a good position to find in thick cover birds that are dead but you can't see. Essentially, its prime use is to retrieve any wounded bird so that you can obviously dispatch it as soon as possible. At the end of the day, it's usually pretty obvious because the pigeons stop fighting to feed. And you get a feeling that the tap is turned off. And it's pretty obvious because how long are you going to sit there without a pigeon? But you get a feeling, and that's the time then I say, right, we'll start to pack up. They are extremely good to eat. The humble pigeon has a very high profile on some of the grandest of restaurants. He is a wonderful bird to eat. High protein, delicious flavour. I mean, my favourite are young pigeons just roasted. Well, I get a tremendous buzz out of pigeon shooting for so many reasons. It's on many levels. Did the day pan out as my reconnaissance had showed me? And if I say, actually, you know, it was something like that, or maybe it wasn't for different reasons, fine. And then you might think, well, gosh, wasn't it wonderful that I saw such a bird or an insect or a butterfly? I didn't expect to get those exciting shots high over the trees to my left, which happened, and or those ones that crossed wide. And I had to leave a lot because they were too far out of range of the gun, but there were some that were just in range, and I was thrilled to get those. So it might be the bird of the day. And so actually, I go home and I'd be very boring to talk to that evening.